But at the same time, in the same week in which the Biden administration usurped congressional review and congressional approval to send more munitions of death to Israel, who, by the way, is committing, check my notes, a genocide in Palestine, killing thousands of Palestinians, including thousands of Palestinian children, including 3 Israeli hostages who were killed by IDF forces, in spite telling the IDF forces, "Hey, it's us. don't kill us. Y'all looking for us." And they said, "Up, stranger danger." Da-da-da-da-da. That's fucked up. And I'm not trying to make light of what happened to those poor people at all, but I'm trying to bring an illumination to the indiscriminate killing, obviously, by Israeli forces over there in Gaza. They don't even recognize their own people. They don't even recognize the motherfuckers they over there looking for, the hostages. In fact, anyway, I can't even talk about that right now. So anyway, so that same week, the same week in which all of this was approved by the Biden administration, this $100 billion in supplemental funding for the Israeli military, here we are in DC with our public transportation somewhat falling apart, but also in threat of being drastically downsized. And I want us to pick it up. If we could cue up that package for me, Will. I want you guys to listen to the ridiculousness that is about to potentially unfold for the public transport system here in the DC metro area. And I want to just remind you guys, for everybody watching at home, maybe some of y'all watching from outside the United States, DC is the nation's capital, okay? Like, this is it. This is, no. I mean, it's not the most important. This is the nation's capital, right? If the shit don't work no other place, it's supposed to work here. You go to Paris, that shit is frosty. You go to fucking Tokyo, that shit is frosty. You go to London, that shit is frosty. You come to DC, that shit is shaky. that shit is shaky at best. So let's listen to the budget woes facing Metro and how it's going to impact specifically the working people of this area, which, by the way, is a lot of black and brown folks in the DC metro area. Let's take a listen.
General Manager Randy Clarke says that the transit agency must close a $750 million budget gap in the first half of 2024 or face some big changes. Some of those changes, all Metro train stations would close at 10 p.m. Typically, they're open until midnight or later. 10 of Metro's 98 stations would shut down completely. On Metro Bus, 67 of the 135 lines would be eliminated, and thousands of Metro employees would lose their jobs.
Let's head over to News 4 transportation reporter Adam Tutz for the latest. Adam, this could be devastating if Metro doesn't come up with the money.
Absolutely, and we're starting to see, the trains get full here. So many federal workers are coming back to the system. You've got people who are just sick of the traffic that's going on around our region. They want to get back on trains and buses. And you have other people who just simply rely on Metro to get around. That's why all of this is so important. And Metro's general manager says he's doing everything he can to try to help close this budget gap.
The alarm bells about this huge Metro budget shortfall are growing louder. Low ridership, inflation, and pandemic-era funding drying up are all contributing to the issue. General Manager Randy Clarke says his agency is looking everywhere for help to close the budget gap, and that includes potential layoffs and hiring freezes inside Metro.
Every million's going to count. So we are managing every day, every single dollar to protect service as much as possible.
Now, Clarke maintains service cuts are a last resort that he hopes he doesn't have to make. The likely solution here is that local jurisdictions and states will be asked to contribute more to Metro. But some local leaders like Jeff McKay, head of the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors, are cautioning the transit agency that Metro must show where and how the money will be spent.
But I can't emphasize enough the importance of putting together a package that says, if you want more money, tell everyone in this community what they are going to get for that in terms of guaranteeing that money is being well spent.
Maryland Governor Wes Moore's office sent us this statement saying finding a sustainable, dedicated funding source for Maryland's transportation modes is a top priority. Our administration is committed to working with WMATA in seeking solutions to these complex funding challenges. Riders, meantime, say they can't imagine service levels being cut or stations closed.
Let's get it together and let's get Metro working because we need Metro.
It means extremely a lot. So you have to do whatever it takes.
Metro's GM is also cautioning closing this gap for next year doesn't fix longer-term issues for Metro. That's why he's also calling for a dedicated and predictable funding stream to now be put in place for the transit agency.
Yeah, you know, we've said it so many times, guys. Metro is the only mass transit system in the United States that doesn't have a dedicated source of funding like a sales tax or a gas tax. That is something that we're going to start to hear an awful lot about, and all of us will pay for that to go toward Metro.
Some big questions here. Tell us, what from where you sit is where the next shoe to drop here, and when a rider's going to find out if the budget shortfall is actually resolved?
Yeah, so the alarm is being sounded now, and this is really because the general manager is trying to get all the local elected leaders on board with what they need to do. The full budget, it gets revised and then voted on in the spring so that it can then be put in place by July. But yeah, $750 million, and that only gets us to next year, guys. So a lot of big questions to tackle here. Back to you.
We know you'll stay on top of this.
That clip there from NBC Washington. Gang, there's a lot there to unpack. I appreciate the righteous indignation and outrage that I'm seeing in the chat because, yeah, isn't that shit fucking crazy? $750 million budget gap, right? Now, to the extent that Metro as an entity is a good steward with their money, I don't know. I don't know if Metro's a good spending their money in the correct way or not. Here's what I do know. So the Metro transit system is in the process of a years-long upgrade. There have been a number of quite serious issues, especially affecting safety in the transit institution. But going back at least 10 years, there's been a handful of trail derailments. There have been a number of tunnel fires. Some people have actually, passengers, riders have died, right? You know, because of some shit with the trains. Currently, they have closed a handful of very critical red line stations in order to do some emergency work in terms of replacing some of the platforms that are crumbling, replacing some of the rails, doing some improvements, right? So Metro has got a lot of money invested in trying to improve the rail service. What pisses me off is that in the face of the United States federal government literally funding a genocide, right? Funding the bombs that have gone to kill thousands of Palestinians, thousands of Palestinian children. They got money for that, okay? Shit, you can't even count the money they got for that. $100 billion. And this is a one-shot funding deal. That does not account for the 3.5 billion that Israel was guaranteed for 10 years as part of a deal authored and approved by the Obama administration. Doesn't count for all the other billions, many billions of funding that the United States has poured into Israel. The nation's capital, the public transport system that serves the nation's capital might have to close at 10 o'clock at night for $750 million. All of this is why America deserves to fail. You deserve to fail. You don't want to shore up home. You don't want to save jobs in the nation's capital for the public transit workers. You don't want to ensure that public school children who rely on Metro to get to and from school, they catch the Metro buses, they catch the trains. What happens to school children if 10 Metro stations outright close? If 67 bus lines are eliminated? What does that do for the workforce? What does that even mean for the federal government workforce, right? Government workers use this transit, period, point blank. That's it. America doesn't run literally if people in the DC region cannot get to work, right? I mean, maybe that's hyperbole on something, but you understand what I'm saying, right? And more importantly, guys, I'm not even talking about the somewhat well-heeled bureaucrats. I'm talking about the black folks in this area that need Metro to get to and from work. All of the security guards that work in these downtown offices, the people that work in the food service industry, the people who are the custodians and the janitors, the people who are the maintenance and the mechanics. Like these are the people that really will be disproportionately displaced and really have their daily livelihoods impacted in a harmful way if this transit closes down. These are the people that can't work from home. These are the real essential workers, right? Like they can't phone it in like most government workers. They have to show up. So what does it say not only to the people of this region, but to the people of the country, but to the people of the world, to the people of the world? When the United States federal government doesn't even see fit to invest in something as critical as public transport in its own nation's capital. Y'all understand that in Beijing, right? Are we all somewhat familiar? I didn't pull a clip and I meant to. And my apologies for not having the visual to back up what I'm about to say here. But y'all, in Beijing, in China, in China, y'all know how that public transport looks in China? That shit look like Star Trek, all right? That shit look like China is in 2123, right? We back here. We stuck in 2023, nigga. And Beijing, they in 2123, okay? Light years ahead. They make the investments in infrastructure. They do what it needs to do to make sure that, hello, society actually progresses. But this is why America as an entity and as an empire is destined to fail, because it's so intent on shoring up its mechanisms, making sure all of its death machinery and its death apparatus are available and running at top efficient speed in order to kill innocents or facilitate the killing of innocents even indirectly, right? But they don't want to take care of home. They don't want to shore up home. It's more important for America to be merchants of death than to be agents of progress in its homeland. And that is unsustainable. You can't keep propping up Israel's military $100 billion every quarter while Metro is $750 million, ergo, therefore, less than one singular billion. Israel gets 100 billion. Metro needs less than 1 billion to remain open and providing the service that this region demands.